Tonight, 4 Canadians are back in this country after being stuck on a cruise ship with a deadly hantavirus outbreak.
There could be more cases, of course, because the incubation period can be up to 6 weeks.
The evacuations and what comes next as passengers return home to begin isolating. We'll put your questions to an infectious disease expert. Plus, an extraordinary mission from the skies to help a sick patient on a remote ocean island. Donald Trump rejects Iran's latest proposal to end the war.
If it's clear in the next few days that there's not a good path to a negotiated settlement, we'll go back to the military method to open the strait.
Why hopes for a quick settlement are fading. And WestJet under investigation after CBC's Go Public questions last-minute cancellations and denied compensation.
They're lied, they're sneaky, they're just trying to do what they can to not pay anybody anything.
The growing fallout as more customers come forward.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thanks for joining us. Ian is away. 4 Canadian passengers of the cruise that ended in a fatal hantavirus outbreak are back in Canada after a journey across the Atlantic, choreographed with precision and protective equipment. On the Spanish island of Tenerife, a site that evokes grim memories of the pandemic as passengers were transferred from the ship to repatriation flights, masked and covered head to toe in plastic. The 4 Canadians among those now isolating for weeks to ensure they don't become links in a deadly chain of infection. Briar Stewart begins our coverage in Tenerife tonight, where public health authorities worked carefully to bring people home.
For passengers from the MV Honges, this is how their nearly 6-week voyage across the Atlantic ended. Ferried to shore of the Spanish island of Tenerife in small boats and met by a team in full protective gear. More than 90 passengers and crew, including 4 Canadians, were evacuated from the ship 1 month after the first passenger died from hantavirus. The Canadians were among the first to board a repatriation flight and were destined for Quebec.
There could be more cases, of course, because the incubation period can be up to 6 weeks. So that's why we are recommending to do quarantining of 42 days.
Not long after 5 French citizens boarded this flight, one of them started to experience symptoms that could be consistent with hantavirus. Health officials say it will be 24 hours before they can get a test result. Passengers and crew from 24 different countries were on the vessel, including Qasim Ibn Hattuta, who posted a video a few hours before the vessel arrived in Tenerife. The situation is calm, he said. We maintain social distancing, sanitize our hands, and wear masks in the ship's interior. It took hours for passengers to be taken off the ship and then transported to planes waiting at the airport. Well, the passengers are departing, most of the crew isn't, and they're going to stay with the vessel as it next heads to Rotterdam. Also still on board the vessel is the body of a German woman who died earlier this month. One of 3 deaths from this outbreak. At least 4 others were urgently hospitalized. British paratroopers were deployed onto the very remote island of Tristan da Cunha in the South Atlantic, where a resident there who had previously disembarked from the vessel had a suspected case of hantavirus. The island has limited medical equipment. It's 2,400 kilometers away from the nearest airstrip, so the team parachuted in a nurse and oxygen. There are still passengers and crew members on the vessel tonight, and on Monday there will be 2 more repatriation flights. There will be 1 flight taking a group to Australia and a second flight that will take several different nationalities to the Netherlands.
And there was a lot of concern in the Canary Islands about the ship before it arrived. How long will it stay?
Well, first thing tomorrow, on Monday, the ship is going to be restocked and refueled. And then the passengers who are departing, as well as the crew members, they will all leave. And after that, the ship is going to set sail for Rotterdam. That's going to be a 5-day voyage. And once it's there will be additional safety protocols. But the company, Oceanwide Expeditions, has not released details around those yet.
All right, thanks for this. Briar Stewart in Tenerife. As epidemiologists the world over are quick to point out, hantavirus is not COVID, but it is dangerous. And as Alexander Silberman shows us, for the Canadians potentially exposed and now back home, it's being treated very seriously.
The 4 Canadians from the hantavirus-stricken MV Hondius finally touching down on home soil. The passengers, first landing in northern Quebec, screened again by health officials and sent by a government-chartered plane to British Columbia once they were assessed as showing no symptoms.
And this situation is being carefully managed every step of the way.
BC's provincial health officer says they will be isolating for 3 weeks, dating back to May 6th, the last day a confirmed case was on board the ship, then reassessed for the remaining half of the incubation period.
I want to reassure people that we are taking every measure to minimize and eliminate any risk.
There are now 10 Canadians isolating in connection to the outbreak, in addition to the 4 in BC, an Ontario couple who disembarked early, and 4 others exposed to a confirmed case on a flight, now at home in Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. All have no symptoms.
Is there a chance they're going to spread the virus? That's very unlikely, given how much precautions have been put in place.
Infectious disease experts say the outbreak appears to be under control, and if any isolating Canadians develop symptoms, there are plans in place, including possible transfer to the BC Biocontainment Treatment Centre, where they would receive immediate supportive care.
There might be the sporadic cases that occur later, but this is not a widespread transmission that's going to occur.
In the U.S., repatriated Americans are being sent to a national quarantine unit, but low-risk travelers will be allowed to isolate at home.
Because the virus doesn't spread unless somebody has active symptoms, those passengers on the planes are considered contacts of contacts.
Canadian officials say people exposed will have no contact with the public and be closely checked on to see if they need to isolate another 3 weeks. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Montreal.
And later in the hour, we'll put some of your questions on hantavirus and this outbreak to infectious diseases specialist Dr. Lenora Saxinger. That's in about 25 minutes. In an effort to end the war in Iran, high-level officials in that country exchanged proposals with their counterparts in the U.S. All fell flat, with President Donald Trump calling Iran's plan totally unacceptable. Katie Simpson has the details.
Hope for a breakthrough to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and revive peace talks is fading quickly as the U.S. is rejecting the latest proposal from Iran. President Donald Trump posting on social media, "I don't like it, totally unacceptable."
If it's clear in the next few days that there's not a good path to a negotiated settlement, we'll go back to the military method to open the strait.
According to Iranian state TV, Tehran proposed the U.S. lift sanctions on Iran. It also called for the U.S. military blockade of Iranian ports to come to an end. And it wants the fighting on all fronts, including in southern Lebanon, to stop. A child is among the at least 7 people killed by an Israeli airstrike on Saturday. Israeli officials say they were targeting Hezbollah militants. Israel, the U.S. partner in the war in Iran, and Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group, continue to exchange attacks despite a ceasefire. The fighting also continues directly between the U.S. and Iran, with the regime launching drones at American warships and at Gulf countries. While the U.S. struck Iranian-flagged tankers, still, apparently, the ceasefire remains in place.
Look, that's up to President Trump as commander-in-chief to determine what constitutes a violation, when to go back to military action, or when to continue to give diplomacy a chance.
The president spent part of his weekend at a golf tournament. He says Iran must give up its nuclear ambitions, and the regime has little leverage left.
Well, the military objectives that we set out to achieve, and we guided the world to 4 to 6 weeks, and it took about 5 weeks to achieve, those are achieved.
But Israel, America's partner in this war, doesn't see it that way.
I think it accomplished a great deal, but it's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran.
All sides of this war appear to be on very different pages, meaning the prospect for peace talks restarting remains unclear at best. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
An Iranian Nobel Peace Laureate and activist has been transferred from prison to a hospital in Tehran, according to a foundation run by her family. Narges Mohammadi's sentence has also been suspended. Mohammadi won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2023 while in prison. She has campaigned to advance women's rights and abolish the death penalty. She had a heart attack 2 weeks ago. Israel is turning to international help amidst a labor crunch. Ever since the October 7th attacks, many Palestinians have been barred from working in the country. Instead, it's bringing in tens of thousands of foreign workers. And as Tom Perry explains, that's leaving many would-be workers in a lurch.
His tools are ready and he's eager to work. But like thousands of Palestinians, Mahmoud Bazi is struggling. An electrician, Bazi used to work on building projects inside Israel. But that ended after the Hamas-led attack of October 7, 2023, when the Israeli government, citing security concerns, canceled work permits for more than 100,000 Palestinians who live in the occupied West Bank. It's been very difficult, he says. Bazi has found some work in the West Bank, but it's scarce and pays less than jobs in Israel. Some Palestinians, desperate for work, have tried slipping past Israeli checkpoints in the trunks of cars. Israeli police recently discovered 70 Palestinian men crammed in the back of a garbage truck, trying, police say, to infiltrate Israel. A sign of just how tight the labor market in the West Bank has become, with the jobless rate now sitting at over 28%. To this analyst, Israel's barring of most Palestinian workers is all part of a larger effort to force people out of the West Bank.
There's the strategy of if people cannot work, if they cannot make a living, then they will be forced to leave.
To fill the gaping hole in its labor force, Israel has brought in tens of thousands of foreign workers. At this construction site in Tel Aviv, workers from Uzbekistan and other countries now fill jobs once held by Palestinians. It's more expensive bringing in and housing these temporary workers, and there are other complications. When you have Chinese workers, Russians, Indians, everyone speaks a different language, says Billy Rubin, a construction contractor. It's become like a Tower of Babel here. For now, Israel isn't softening its stance, with Palestinians still seen as a potential danger. Workers in the West Bank still shut out. Tom Perry, CBC News, Ramallah.
Mark Carney says he's open to deepening trade ties with the U.S., but if it's not possible, the country will look elsewhere. JP Tasker has reaction tonight to Carney's latest speech ahead of a looming trade review.
At a political conference, the Prime Minister warmly greeting former U.S. President Barack Obama before launching into a speech about why Canada needs to urgently diversify trade away from the American market.
All right, thank you. As it changes those policies, many of our former strengths have become our vulnerabilities.
With that in mind, Ottawa is moving to streamline the approval process for natural resource projects. The new goal, complete these federal reviews in under a year, as the government drives to get more of these products to Asia, in case a Canada-U.S. trade deal doesn't come together.
If that route is not ultimately possible, we will invest heavily in new markets and products. We'll reward those who build, buy, and produce in Canada, and we will build new partnerships abroad.
A senior Democratic senator met with Mark Carney to try and smooth things over amid the bilateral bad blood.
We have big problems with the tariffs as well at home, and we're trying to push back on some of these things that just don't make sense in the U.S.-Canada relationship.
She's urging the Prime Minister to not give up on the American relationship.
This is a tough moment in time, but it's not the last moment in time, and we have long-standing strategic interests that align.
With the CUSMA review deadline less than 2 months away, Canada and the U.S. still haven't met face-to-face for any sort of formal negotiations.
So nobody's dragging their feet. We're anxious to do that work, and I think the Americans know that.
The minister responsible for the file says it's not Canada holding things up. It's those punishing tariffs on steel, autos, and lumber that the Trump administration says aren't going anywhere.
He hasn't sat down at the negotiating table
for 5 months.
The conservative leader, meanwhile, ramping up the pressure for a deal.
While the Mexicans are there eating our diplomatic and economic lunch, he is sitting on the sidelines and our people are sitting without jobs.
Concern over job loss is what's prompting Carney to fast-track energy projects. More oil and gas development could be a huge boon for an economy that needs it. Environmentalists, though, are deeply concerned that all of this puts the country's climate goals in jeopardy.
And JP, what happens if there isn't a deal done by July 1st?
Well, at this point, both sides have said they don't think something can come together by then, but that doesn't mean the agreement is dead. It remains in place as the three sides continue negotiating. Unless, of course, President Trump triggers the nuclear option, there's always the possibility he pulls out of CUSMA entirely. Erica?
All right, JP Tasker in Ottawa tonight. The recent large-scale leak of Alberta voter information is laying bare a weak spot in Canada's privacy laws. Most of them don't apply to political parties. As the RCMP investigates, Joe Horwood shows us why the Privacy Commissioner's hands are tied.
The breach of personal information of nearly 3 million Alberta voters is leading to a wake-up call across Canada that most privacy laws exempt political parties.
There's nothing in the law which requires them to report data breaches. There is for governments, agencies, there are for commercial organizations, but that doesn't apply to political parties.
Only BC and Quebec have privacy laws that hold parties responsible.
And basically what's happened is that politicians have been exempting themselves.
Alberta Privacy Commissioner Diane McLeod says she's investigating a third-party advertiser, the pro-separatist Centurion Project, for possible privacy violations. Centurion created the database and publicly posted it online. Elections Alberta got a court injunction to force the removal of the database, saying it had traced the information to a copy of the voters list it had legally provided to the pro-separatist Republican Party of Alberta. But the Privacy Commissioner says investigating that party is outside her jurisdiction.
The fallout is going to take a form in people's lives that probably folks aren't anticipating.
After the breach was revealed, this Edmonton city councillor says his office helped a woman affected by intimate partner violence find a safe new home for her and her children.
Once it's out, it's out. And that is a dagger hanging over the head of anyone who has to keep their privacy for their safety.
There has to be control of not only the voters list, but the other information that political parties are capturing about our political views.
Alberta's Privacy Commissioner says her office has spent decades calling for political parties to be included in privacy legislation, while others warn the privacy gap is widening across the country as parties gather more data about us. Joe Horwood, CBC News, Calgary.
A growing number of WestJet passengers are questioning denials of compensation based on airplane maintenance for safety.
They're lied, they're sneaky. They're just trying to do what they can to not pay anybody anything.
Why advocates say the airline may be violating regulations. And a victim of identity theft claims the government isn't doing enough to catch imposters.
I don't know if they're investigating anything, really.
What a former Canada Revenue Agency investigator says the problem is. And later, a teen bowler throws a perfect game at a national championship.
I didn't honestly understand to the extent how rare it is until it actually happened.
His flawless 450 makes our moment. We're back in 2.
Then there was just like a crash. It felt like, getting in a big giant fender bender.
A Frontier Airlines flight was preparing for takeoff from Denver when it fatally struck a pedestrian on the runway. A flight tracker captured the aircraft's erratic moves as an engine fire forced a full evacuation. The airport says the pedestrian jumped a fence and was struck minutes later. More WestJet customers have joined our Go Public investigation into canceled flights that leave them with no compensation. Airlines don't have to pay when the cause is unplanned maintenance required for safety. But we found a pattern in the flight records that one advocate calls fraudulent.
The beaches were empty a lot of the time.
Brad Vanderwilk enjoyed his recent vacation in Los Cabos, Mexico, until the last night when he and his girlfriend got an email from WestJet during dinner, canceling their flight home.
We stopped eating because we're like, how are we going to get home? We've got our kids at home. We've got to both have to work. And into a bit of a tizzy, we had to try and get through to WestJet.
He arrived home about 16 hours late, so Vanderwilk filed for compensation. Under Canada's passenger rights rules, he could get $1,000. WestJet denied his claim, citing unplanned aircraft maintenance required for safety, a category where they don't have to pay for a delay. But flight records we reviewed show WestJet swapped in a different aircraft, one that hadn't flown for 2 days, and then canceled the flight the very same minute. The original plane, it was used for a different flight.
They're lied, they're sneaky. They're just trying to do what they can to not pay anybody anything.
Recently, Go Public reported 2 similar cases. Now, more passengers have come forward. We checked flight data and found 34 cases where passengers were denied compensation after WestJet swapped in planes that needed maintenance, then canceled the flights, sometimes within minutes. In every case, WestJet claimed safety-related maintenance.
When you make business decisions, the passengers should be made whole for the inconvenience caused to them.
An air passenger advocate says the flight records show a disturbing pattern, swapping planes to avoid paying compensation.
That's fraudulent.
He estimates WestJet is saving tens of thousands of dollars per canceled flight by denying compensation, about $200,000 when delays stretch beyond 9 hours.
It is not a one-off situation. The masterminds behind this fraud need to face accountability.
Go Public asked WestJet why planes were being swapped just before cancellations. The airline declined an interview and wouldn't address our questions, but said planes are sometimes reassigned to minimize the effect of disruptions. Meantime, Brad Vanderwilk is taking WestJet to small claims court, and Canada's airline regulator has confirmed it's investigating. Now, our Go Public stories come from you. If you have a tip for the team to investigate, send an email to gopublic@cbc.ca. The deadly cruise ship outbreak half a world away is leaving many with questions about hantavirus.
It's an uncommon illness that can start off very nonspecific and then become severe.
We'll put your hantavirus questions to an infectious disease specialist. Also, some pesky neighbors from the south are heading north, and they're bringing danger.
It's not like they're not going to come. We can't stop them. We can't just put a wall up.
Why one province is going on the offense to fight some unfamiliar pests. And later, a handful of Republican senators lose their shot at representing the party after opposing Trump's redistricting plans.
Ousting more state Senate incumbents in one night than in the past quarter century combined.
How the Indiana primary results show the cost of disobeying Trump. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Elton John on stage last night in Toronto, where he was awarded the Glenn Gould Prize for his lifetime contribution to the arts.
Grateful for my family, my husband, my children, and my Canadian family, and Canada in general. Thank you for this incredible experience over the last few days.
John, who is married to a Canadian, was honored in a star-studded celebration covering his greatest hits, including Diana Krall, The Beaches, and Sarah McLachlan. An Edmonton woman is facing multiple charges related to a case of identity theft. It follows a Fifth Estate investigation into hacked accounts at the Canada Revenue Agency. As Mark Kelly reports, the charges may only scratch the surface of schemes that have stolen from the public purse.
Leslie.
Hi.
When we met Leslie Warner last year, she was reeling after someone stole her personal information, claimed she'd moved to Alberta with 3 kids she didn't have, and collected child benefits in her name.
This is the fraud file.
Warner was originally charged in the fraud. 5 years later, Edmonton prosecutors have laid 9 charges against the woman believed to be her imposter.
These are people's lives. Like, she has caused me so much stress, so much frustration. I've spent countless hours of my life working on this.
Hey, Christina. This is the woman charged in her case. Her name is Christina Chirpak. The Fifth Estate tracked her down last year, believing she is linked to a series of identity thefts involving BC healthcare workers, including Leslie Warner.
We just want to find out how you got those names.
Our investigation revealed Chirpak is connected to an address in Edmonton, which was used to create fake companies, file fake T4 slips, and get tax refunds. Hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen from the public purse. The charges against Chirpak relate to the Alberta child benefits fraud. But should the CRA be investigating her for tax fraud? That's what Warner wants to know.
The CRA, nothing. They are not in contact with me. So for them, I think they feel like they've cleared my account, and that's that. So I don't know if they're investigating anything, really.
Warner is just one of at least 26 BC healthcare workers whose CRA accounts were hacked. The CRA wouldn't confirm if they were investigating the cases. The CRA takes these matters very seriously and has implemented robust measures to protect taxpayers' accounts. Shauna Roy is a former CRA investigator who says the agency isn't doing enough to go after identity thieves.
I don't think this should be a taxpayer. It shouldn't be a victim problem. It should be a CRA problem. They let the, theft happen. They let it continue to happen. Now they need to stop the bleeding. How are they going to do it?
Christina, what
Chirpak did not comment through her lawyer for this story. Her case is scheduled to go to court sometime in 2027. Mark Kelly, CBC News, Toronto.
In the breakdown tonight, as passengers disembark a virus-hit cruise ship, we're ready to answer your questions about the hantavirus and why tick-borne threats are causing alarm in Canada. As the weather warms up and more Canadians get outdoors, researchers are cautioning about new disease-carrying ticks moving north.
Don't be scared. Be prepared.
We'll look at what's being done to protect lives and livestock. But first,
this is an active operation.
After 8 confirmed cases and 3 deaths, evacuation of the hantavirus-hit cruise ship is underway.
All the passengers remain asymptomatic.
Dozens of passengers, including Canadians, returning home. And that may raise questions around quarantine and transmission risk. To help provide some clarity to those and other questions viewers sent in, let's bring in infectious diseases specialist Dr. Lenora Saxinger. Okay, our first question is from TikTok. What are the symptoms and what can we do to avoid being infected with the virus?
The first part of symptoms is mostly they start with fever, very bad muscle aches, and in this outbreak, quite a few of the patients have had, although there's not that many patients, have had, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea predominantly, and then later develop more symptoms that are kind of leading towards sepsis with pneumonia, and then getting very ill and sometimes needing critical care. So it's an uncommon illness that can start off very nonspecific and then become severe. The other part of it would be how can you avoid it? It's actually quite easy to avoid. It's overall very rare for people to get infected with hantaviruses. They're widespread viruses in Asia, Europe, and the Americas. But there's relatively few cases every year, and the vast majority of cases are caused by direct contact with rodents and their excretions. And so if you are, sweeping out a shed that has a infestation of rodents that are carrying this virus and you inhale that dust, that would be the most common route that we would see people becoming ill. This outbreak is quite unique because there is evidence of person-to-person spread with this particular strain of the virus, which is a bit different than most of the hantaviruses. And so for most people in most places, it's not really something that you have to be concerned about unless you're about to sweep out a shed and you have deer mice in the shed. And even in Canada, actually, I would point out that most of the cases have actually been in Manitoba and West. And there's been, 100 to 200 cases in Canada total over time.
Okay. Our next question was emailed to us. I'm curious to know, how does the virus transfer between humans? Is it the transfer of the virus through bodily fluids? I understand it is not airborne. Is that correct? You touched on that, but could you perhaps explain a bit more? Because people are quite concerned.
Right. I mean, I think people are kind of having this echoing feel because of the COVID pandemic and how it started off with lots of reassurance. But it is a very, very different virus than that. And it's a bit tricky because if you're just talking about acquiring an infection through inhalation, it is generally an airborne virus. But it kind of, people get lost in the weeds a little bit, but it comes down to, how close and how much contact you have to be in with the person who's infected in this particular scenario, which again is very uncommon. And most of the cases that have had person-to-person transmission that have been reported, again, it's a very small number, have been people that have been in prolonged close household contact, sharing a bed. And it does look like one of the ways that this virus might be different than the other hantaviruses is that it reaches higher concentrations in the saliva. And so, speaking, singing, coughing, oral secretion sharing with kissing and stuff like that could all be ways that you could spread this particular strain of hantavirus. And so it is different. So although it's acquired through inhalation, it's not the same as something like measles or even something like influenza, where you expect that, the whole airspace might be contaminated. There does seem to be an intensity of contact and a duration of contact. And also, of course, on the other side, if the individual that you're in contact with had a very high viral load, that means that a more fleeting contact might be important. And that's one of the things that they're following up in this outbreak.
Now, Lenora, during COVID, we were told to social distance and to wear masks. Would that help with hantavirus?
That would be expected to be helpful for hantavirus for sure. So, anytime we talk about a close contact droplet or airborne spread, all the measures that you take to just avoid being in contact with secretions or droplets, small or large, is valuable.
Lastly, another email. This one has been on a lot of people's minds lately. What are the chances of there being a global outbreak or another lockdown?
I absolutely understand why people are asking that question. And I would say that we've learned not to say never, because you can never really say never, but I think it's not viewed as being a very high-risk scenario. It's something that requires a lot of attention and respect because it is a virus that is widespread and it has to be carefully tracked and understood. But it's not that spreadable in the sense of COVID, influenza, or even something like measles. It is very rare for it to spread person to person, and it seems to be very conditional in that way. And I think that we are going to be watching this very, very closely. But I can say that I don't think any infectious diseases or public health people I know are highly concerned. I think we're watching.
All right. Well, I think that is what we want to hear. Infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Lenora Saxinger, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tick-borne illnesses are also causing unease in parts of Canada as some species migrate north, bringing new health risks. Tom Murphy spoke with scientists and farmers in Nova Scotia about efforts to combat the threat.
There are pesky neighbors to our south, posing an increasing risk to Canadians.
It's not like they're not going to come. We can't stop them. We can't just put a wall up.
Their invasion is well underway, spreading disease.
And they can carry diseases which we haven't seen here yet.
It's forcing Canada to shore up its defenses.
Forewarned is forearmed.
And that threat, advancing 50 kilometers a year, is smaller than your fingernail. Ticks. This is the Canadian Tick Research and Innovation Centre, or CITRIC.
This is the first kind of facility in Canada.
A sort of defense command for ticks in Canada, if you will, based at Acadia University in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. Nicoletta Ferrione is the associate professor in charge of the pioneering research here.
I would say that people are very alarmed and very scared about the presence of and the transmission of tick-borne diseases. We don't have a vaccine for Lyme yet, although we know very well that ticks carry multiple pathogens. So a vaccine for Lyme won't be the best solution for protecting us from this. So we need to really not be scared, be prepared. Knowledge is important.
The black-legged tick, or deer tick, carries Lyme disease. But there are more than 40 other different types of ticks in Canada already. And then there are the troubling ticks to come. The Lone Star tick is making inroads, and the Asian longhorn tick. Those last two have farmers in Nova Scotia concerned. The Asian longhorned tick can cause anemia in cattle. It can kill them.
They're coming whether we want them or not.
Beef farmer Tim Marsh in Poplar Grove, Nova Scotia, is ever vigilant for signs his cattle might be struggling, fearful he might lose one.
Well, you'd be a couple $1,000s right off the top, depending on the age of it. Is it a bred cow? Then you're losing 2 animals. It could be expensive in a hurry.
And if you still think ticks are little more than a nuisance, consider Patty O'Brien Carrier, an avid gardener in the nearby state of Maine. She was bitten by a Lone Star tick, then developed a severe meat allergy, which causes anaphylactic shock.
I get very itchy. My whole body itches, and I break out in hives. And then my breath gets shorter and shorter to the point that I can't breathe because it's shutting off my airway. So you absolutely can't breathe. And then if you don't get help immediately, then you can drop dead. So.
At Citric, they plan to bring both the Asian longhorned and Lone Star ticks into this secure facility.
We will enter here.
To study them and hopefully find a way to combat them.
Having them here, studying them, testing them, their behavior, their response, and also looking at the type of pathogen that they carry can help us to be more prepared.
In the meantime, there are actually growing ticks we are already familiar with here, like the American dog tick, to study them too, feeding blood to the females using a kind of fake skin.
This chamber is inserted inside this where...
There are ticks inside here.
Yes, there are ticks where the blood, it's basically flowing and the membrane is in direct contact with warm and fresh blood. And
That's
ticks,
simulating someone's skin.
Exactly, someone's skin. And ticks will pierce through the membrane and they will be fed.
And eventually have babies. The female is laying eggs right now?
Yes. Yep. And this is the first eggs we're having.
We happen to be there for the first birth to happen in the lab.
She's starting laying the eggs, so we have the eggs in here, and we're expecting to see at least 2,000 eggs laid by a single female.
Quickly.
Yes, a female can lay around 2,000 eggs.
How many females are out there?
A lot.
As futile as it might all seem, back on the farm, Tim Marsh does what he can. Ticks like to climb up on tall grass and branches in hopes of hitching a ride on humans or cattle, so Marsh is clearing his fence lines.
The ticks will be knee height in these plants, like these little shrubs. We're going to come through yet again with a brush cutter again and zip some of these fine things off.
There are some products farmers can use on their cattle, and companies and scientists are working together on more sprays to repel ticks on humans.
In terms of natural products, we have developed a fabric spray, which is also first of its kind because it's based on essential oils and is meant to be on fabric. There is also a new product that we hope to launch soon that is basically based on essential oils, balsam fir essential oils, that with a proper engineering encapsulation we've done in the lab, it can be applied on your lawn and is meant to kill overwintering ticks.
Eventually, property owners will be enlisted to join the fight.
So of course, we need to obtain a permit through Health Canada because the idea is also registering this product. So we will probably contact people for their backyard to test this product.
Because the urgency to understand these tiny creatures is huge.
There are also other pathogens that needs to be more studied. Specifically, for example, the Poisson virus, which is carried by the blackleg tick. We don't have a treatment at the moment. It can be deadly. So studying ticks, monitoring the pathogens is a good way. It's the right approach for us to be prepared.
So for those who love the outdoors, what's Patty O'Brien Carrier's advice?
I have a hat and I have gloves, and I spray myself with lots of different products to keep the ticks at bay, because I surely heck don't want to get another tick bite.
And that's the message here. Be on guard. Don't be scared. Be prepared.
After the break, Trump-backed candidates win in Indiana's Senate primaries, reinforcing his influence over his party and the cost of defying him.
He's been the driving force in the Republican Party for the past 10 years at this point.
How will the Indiana outcome have an impact on the ongoing debate over redrawing electoral boundaries? Next. A record number of incumbent senators ousted in an Indiana primary, all of them Republicans, all of them the targets of Donald Trump, after they opposed his redistricting agenda ahead of the fall midterm elections. Those results a reminder of the U.S. president's grip on the Republican Party. And as Andrew Chang, host of About That, shows, Trump's retribution strategy in Indiana might echo beyond it in months to come.
Republicans right now are choosing their champions. Who gets to carry the Republican flag in the upcoming midterms? But as of now, at least these 5 state senators from Indiana who dared to defy Trump, they've just been cut from the team.
The 2026 Indiana primaries made history, ousting more state Senate incumbents in one night than in the past quarter century combined.
So what'd they do to cross Trump in the first place? Well, you've heard about this nationwide redistricting.
New redistricting battles across the country.
The push to redistrict. Yeah, that's the one. Republicans and Democrats across the United States are trying to redraw the lines that divvy up voters in their states. Because, slice a state up one way, Republicans may just hold on to their majority in the House. Slice it another way, maybe the Democrats wrestled back control. Each side trying to give their party an edge before the midterms in November. Texas, California, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, they're all doing it. But Indiana's different. When a Republican bill made its way to Indiana's state Senate late last year, looking to redraw its voter maps, 21 Republican senators voted no and sided with Democrats to kill the bill.
The idea that the government should be able to draw new maps anytime it wants, not after a census, takes power from the people and gives it to the government, and that's far from conservative.
Now, Trump was not happy about this, and he made it a question of loyalty. Any Republican that votes against this important redistricting should be primaried, meaning we don't want you running as a Republican in the next election. Vote them out of office. I will be there to help, calling them out by name and calling them pathetic, incompetent, ineffective rhinos, Republicans in name only. And sure enough, when it came time for some of those same Republican senators to face re-election in their primaries, Trump threw his support behind challenger candidates with endorsements, Oval Office photo ops, and lots of money was spent. Ad Impact, a firm that tracks political ads, estimates north of $13 million was spent on Indiana's state Senate race, which is like a zillion times increase in spending from previous years. The outcome of all of this? As of right now, 5 out of the 7 Indiana senators who voted against the Republican redistricting plan lost to Trump-endorsed candidates. Incumbent Travis Holdman, a senator since 2008, voted no to redistricting. He lost. James Buck, also in office since 2008, voted no and voted out. Greg Walker, a senator since 2006, he's done. Linda Rogers, out. Daniel Dernulk, out. This whole exercise was really a temperature check for Trump. Does it affect the likelihood of Indiana redrawing its maps? Of course. But it's also about how much power Trump has over the Republican Party and how afraid Republicans should be if they don't do what they're told.
Coming up next, a young Canadian bowler scores big.
I bowled a perfect 450.
His flawless game and how it felt to accomplish it. Next, in our moment. You're looking at Logan Newton, a 17-year-old bowler from Winnipeg, competing in the Canadian Youth Bowling Championship. During the competition, he did the almost unimaginable. He scored 450, the highest possible showing in 5-pin bowling. So tonight, Logan's perfect game is our moment.
I bowled a perfect 450. It's so rare that a 450 happens even in like a little small league with a bunch of friends or something, but to have it in the national championship, it's even more rare. What I always say is that you got to be good to be lucky sometimes. 5-pin is strictly Canadian, and it's 5 pins, but each pin is worth different amount of points. So every frame on the first ball, you have to knock down all 5 pins. So people started talking to me, and people started joking about, hey, no one's thrown a 400 yet, no one's thrown a 450, so you might as well go do it. And it ended up happening. It's the second one we've had in 62 years. So it's crazy how it's happened twice. It's awesome to represent Manitoba for bowling. People here supporting the sport is just amazing. BC always played us hard. They're both really good bowlers, same as Southern Ontario. I was on cloud 9.
I bet. And not only did Logan play a perfect game, he also won gold in doubles with his partner, Tanner Barber. So huge congrats to Logan and to Tanner. And if you're wondering, 5-pin bowling was invented in Toronto in 1909, and it remains a uniquely Canadian sport. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Erica Johnson in Vancouver. Take care.